So, we're going to talk about toddler tantrums, but probably not in the way you're used to. This whole thing for me started at what was, no joke, my absolute lowest point as a parent.
Yeah, that's it. That's the thought that was just looping in my head. I was standing there completely mortified, in the middle of a crowded market. Why? Because a total stranger was, well, judging my parenting. Loudly. And the crazy part? This entire disaster? It all kicked off because of a single vegetable.
I've come to call it the Great Carrot Meltdown. And yeah, it sounds kind of funny now, looking back, but I promise you, in that moment, it felt like the world was ending. This was the tipping point, the thing that absolutely forced me to figure out what was really going on inside my toddler's head. Okay, so picture this. It's a scene any parent will recognize instantly. We're at the vegetable market in Pune. My goal was super simple. Grab groceries for the week and get home. In and out. Easy, right? Well, my 3-year-old son, he had a different plan. He zeroed in on 2 baskets of carrots. You had your regular orange ones, and then you had these purple ones. And in his mind, it was like the orange ones didn't even exist. He was on a mission, a singular one, and it was about to collide head-on with mine, spectacularly. So I, being the practical parent, reached for the orange ones. They just looked a little fresher to me. And boom, that's when the bomb went off. It was immediate, a full-scale, total meltdown. He just threw himself right there on the dirty market floor, screaming, "Purple carrots!" like it was the most important thing in the entire world. There was no consoling him. None.
I mean, I tried everything. The whole parenting toolkit came out. Reasoning? Nope, completely useless. Trying to bargain? He literally couldn't hear me over his own screaming. Threats? Pff, they meant absolutely nothing. And the whole time, you could just feel the eyes on you. People were staring. I could just feel the judgment washing over me, and I have never felt so completely helpless in my life. Somehow, I managed to scoop up my screaming kid and get out of there. I went home just feeling totally defeated. I had to know what just happened. You start asking yourself those questions. Am I a bad parent? Is he a bad kid? But what I ended up finding out, well, it wasn't a behavior problem at all. It was this incredible, fascinating paradox happening inside his brain.
And right here, this is it. This is the one single idea that changed everything for me. A tantrum isn't your kid trying to be bad or defiant. It's a distress signal. Think of it like a nervous system overload. A total short circuit that happens when an emotion gets so big, their little developing brain just can't handle it.
Okay, so the easiest way to think about it is like this. A toddler's brain is kind of developing on 2 completely different schedules. On one hand, you've got their desire for control, for autonomy, and that's just shooting off like a rocket. But on the other hand, the part of their brain that deals with things like disappointment or being flexible, that's moving at a snail's pace. And tantrums, they live right in that gap between those 2 speeds.
And that's when the light bulb went on for me. The whole meltdown, it was never really about the carrots. The purple carrots were just a symbol. They were his choice, his independence. When I just casually picked the orange ones, in his world, I wasn't just choosing a vegetable. I was basically telling him his choice didn't matter. And his brain it couldn't compute that level of disappointment. It just short-circuited. So what's actually going on inside their head on a biological level? Let's take a look. Let's go inside the tantrum brain. Okay, so it's basically a chain reaction, right? It all starts with a trigger. For us, it was no purple carrots. That simple no sounds a massive alarm in the emotional part of the brain, the amygdala. And that just floods their whole system with stress hormones. Now, this is the crucial part. That flood of hormones literally shuts down their thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex. It just goes offline. The captain has left the bridge, and what you're left with is that full-blown fight-or-flight meltdown. And this analogy, it's perfect. It explains exactly why nothing I did in the market worked. I was trying to have a logical conversation with a part of his brain that was, for all intents and purposes, completely offline. He wasn't being defiant and ignoring me. He was physiologically incapable of processing what I was saying. He was literally drowning in a sea of his own stress hormones. But here's the good news, and believe me, it is good news. This stage doesn't last forever. If you look at this chart, you can see tantrums follow a pretty predictable pattern. They really peak around ages 2 and 3, and then, as that thinking part of the brain matures, they start to go down. So yes, there is absolutely a light at the end of the tunnel.
So, armed with this new understanding of his brain, I basically threw my old parenting playbook in the trash. My goal completely shifted. It wasn't about stopping the tantrum anymore. It was about helping my son through the tantrum. And that simple shift in perspective, it changed everything.
All right, rule number one, and I'm not going to lie, this is the hardest one. You have to stay calm. My new job was to be the calm anchor in his emotional hurricane. It's wild, but a parent's calm nervous system can literally help a child's regulate itself. I didn't have to say much. I just had to be there. A safe, steady, non-panicked presence.
Number 2, no negotiating during the storm. If I had just given in and bought the stupid purple carrots, it might have felt like a short-term win, but it wouldn't have actually stopped the meltdown in his brain. It would have just taught him that screaming gets you what you want. The real key is to hold the boundary, but do it calmly. You can say something like, I see you're so mad we can't get those, but the no stays a no.
Okay, number 3. After the storm starts to pass, that's when you reconnect. You'll see it. The crying gets softer, their little body starts to relax. That's your cue to offer a hug. And let's be clear, this isn't rewarding the tantrum. It's reinforcing safety. It's teaching them a huge lesson. You can have these giant, scary feelings, and I will still be right here for you when it's over.
Number 4 is to debrief, but way later. Once everyone is totally calm, maybe hours later, you can talk about it, but keep it super brief. Something simple like, man, you were so sad about those carrots today. This isn't a lecture. It's just helping them put a name to the feeling, building that emotional vocabulary for next time.
And finally, number 5, play defense. I basically became a trigger detective. I started asking, is he hangry? Is he tired? Is he overstimulated? Most of the time, it was one of those 3. By just managing those basic needs, like maybe not going to the grocery store right before nap time, I could prevent a ton of these meltdowns from even starting.
So, the big question, did it work? Did the tantrums just magically disappear overnight? Of course not. This isn't a magic wand. But what did happen was that the whole dynamic in our family started to shift. We went from constant chaos to a new kind of calm, a more connected calm. And the progress, it was slow, but it was definitely there. A couple weeks in, just by tracking his triggers, I could see the patterns emerge clear as day. By the end of the first month, the tantrums were getting shorter. I think it's because I was calmer, so he recovered faster. And then around month 3, something amazing happened. He started using his words. Hearing him say, I'm sad to leave the park instead of just melting down, oh my gosh, that was a massive win.
By the time he hit his 4th birthday, those epic on-the-floor meltdowns were pretty much a thing of the past. I mean, he still had big feelings. He's a kid, he's human. But the difference was now he was starting to get the tools to handle them without his brain going into complete hijack mode.
So I'll just leave you with the one question that really changed everything for me and my family. What if a tantrum isn't a behavior we have to stop? What if it's not a fight we have to win? What if it's just a storm that we need to weather together? An opportunity to show our kid that we can be their anchor, no matter how wild the waves get.